Exposed, airline staff blocked an inspiring black pilot 15 minutes later, lives changed forever. Marcus Parker stood at Atlanta's airport, heart racing with anticipation. Today was the community aviation event, his chance to show the world what a father with big dreams could accomplish. He looked down at his daughter, Zoe, beaming with hope. Her bright eyes mirrored his own aspirations. With every ounce of determination, he swelled with pride. He envisioned the sky unfolding before him, the thrill of flying bringing freedom and joy to his little girl, but as he approached the check-in desk, hope turned to despair. The airline staff exchanged skeptical glances when they saw his credentials. Their whispers filtered through the air, laced with bias that felt like chains binding him down. "Does he really think he can fly?" one staff member sneered. The word stung. The smile faded from Zoe's face as confusion washed over her. He could feel the weight of their doubt. Marcus clenched his fists, fighting back frustration. A quiet shame crept in, whispering that maybe he wasn't meant for this. He turned and caught Zoe's gaze, her innocent curiosity piercing through his insecurities. What kind of example would he be if he gave up? Behind him, his friends and fellow veterans moved forward, offering words of encouragement, igniting a fire within him. "Don't let them bring you down, Marcus," shouted Rachel, a veteran pilot with a fierce spirit. The support from his tight-knit community surged through him like warm sunlight. It was enough to lift his sagging spirit, yet the initial setback jabbed at the cracks forming in his heart. He had fought hard for this. Was the American dream really just a crumpled piece of paper? Before he could spiral farther, Zoe stood tall, eyes narrowing at the staff. She couldn't understand the bias that enveloped her father like a thick fog. It was then that Marcus felt a shift within him. But her voice quaked, breaking the tension of the moment. "It's not fair." She burst out, tears close to brim. "My dad can fly just like anyone else." In that moment, the crowd grew silent, tension crackling like static. Then, something unexpected happened. A passerby, phone ready, began recording. The video capturing Marcus' humiliation quickly spread across social media. Headlines exploded, visible bias against aspiring black pilot. Conversations ignited about race, merit, and perseverance. The video swept through platforms like wildfire, drawing the attention it rightly deserved. A collective voice erupted in support as people rallied around Marcus' fight for recognition. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. With the storm of support brewing, Marcus felt his emotions climax. He was called forward for a chance to demonstrate his flying skills. Yet, as he climbed into the aircraft, he realized the challenge was bigger than himself. It wasn't merely about flying, it was unmasking the biases that kept people like him grounded. In that moment, vulnerability washed over him, entwined with hope. Zoe squeezed his hand, her small voice cutting through the tension. "Dad, remember to believe in you." Her words echoed through the cockpit, awaking resilience he never knew he had. Would they soar towards justice and change? Only time would tell, but standing on the precipice of possibility, Marcus felt ready. The winds of change were rising and maybe, just maybe, they could fly together into the sunlight. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the rumble of the aircraft beneath him. The roar of the engines was like music, calling him back to the place where he belonged. Zoe's small hand in his squeezed tighter, reminding him that this moment was about more than just him. It was about every dream that had been silenced before it even had a chance to take flight. As he flicked the switches and prepared the plane for takeoff, thoughts raced through Marcus's mind. He wasn't just flying for himself. He was flying for every underrepresented pilot who was overlooked, every aspiring aviator told they didn't belong in the cockpit. He was flying for Zoe, who deserved to see her father as a symbol of possibilities, not limits. "Be ready for anything, Dad," Zoe prompted, her youthful voice grounding him. He smiled at her reflection in the instruments, seeing her determination lighting up the cabin. It reminded him of lighter days when he was young, wide-eyed and dreaming beneath the open sky, much like Zoe did now that as the plane taxied down the runway. He recalled the relentless effort it took to get here. Late nights studying, mornings spent practicing maneuvers, and the fear he often battled: fear of failure, fear of judgment. Each one weighed heavily in the back of his mind. But today, he made a choice to silence those fears. Today, he would rise above. The aircraft lifted off the ground, and for a sweet moment, reality melted away. He glanced at Zoe, her eyes wide with wonder, and felt a rush of relief and exhilaration wash over him. This was what he craved, what they both craved: the freedom of flight, the rush of the wind beneath them, unburdened by doubt. "Look at that, Zoe!" he exclaimed, pointing toward the sprawling city beneath them. "Isn't it amazing?" She squealed, clapping her hands with delight. The sound of her joy filled the cockpit, replacing the previous tension with warmth that spread through Marcus's heart, but as he climbed higher, the reality of the moment tugged at him. Despite the soaring altitude, he knew the path to equality was full of turbulence. Flying wasn't just a passion, it was a battle, a statement, and it was his turn to make it count. Inspiration danced through his veins. If he could reach new heights, perhaps he could help others do the same. Nerves crept back in as he reached the altitude where he was supposed to demonstrate his skills. It was now or never. Pulling the throttle back, Marcus prepared for the tricky maneuvers while Zoe remained a beacon of unwavering support beside him. Suddenly, the radio crackled with voices, filling the cockpit atmosphere with chatter about the social media buzz. "Everyone's talking about you, Marcus. They believe in you," the voice on the radio buzzed with excitement. The hive of support buzzing around him made the aircraft feel lighter, transforming the weight of his doubts into wings that could carry him high. That he glanced back at Zoe, who was engrossed in the spectacle outside, her imagination alight with hopes and dreams. Inspired by her spirit and the beacon of support from the outside world, Marcus steered with newfound confidence. He could make this flight count. He could pave the way not just for himself, but for every dreamer sidelined by discrimination. As he executed the first difficult turn, everything felt imbued with a sense of purpose, even the air itself. Maybe they'd come back down to earth, but today, they were in the clouds, defying gravity, defying the odds. The moment of truth has arrived, he thought, feeling the adrenaline course through him. And beneath all that was hope, a powerful, unyielding force. But when the plane dipped suddenly, a fear shot through him. What if it wasn't just the aircraft's mechanics he had to worry about? What if this flight morphed into something more than just about him? With a heart pounding louder than the engines, he steadied the plane and felt a surge of determination. He was ready to soar, and in so doing, confront not just the sky, but the very biases that sought to bring him down. The plane shuddered slightly, as if it sensed Marcus's rising tension. He tightened his grip on the controls, feeling the aircraft's pulse through his fingertips. One moment didn't define a lifetime, he'd remind himself of that. But the stakes felt particularly high today. "Dad! Look at that cloud!" Zoe suddenly exclaimed, her voice cutting through his focus. He turned his head, catching a glimpse of the fluffy formations beneath them, glowing softly against the blue of the sky. Her wonder reignited something inside of him, a flame that whispered possibilities. "Yeah, let us fly through it," he encouraged, redirecting the plane toward the inviting mass. He had come too far to let hesitation cloud his judgment. It was time to show Zoe how thrilling it could be to break through barriers both in the air and on the ground. As they entered the cloud, the cockpit filled with a misty white. Visibility dropped drastically. For a moment, he could barely see the instruments or Zoe's face. His heart raced, amplifying the thrill and fear intertwined in the cockpit atmosphere. Do you see the stars up there? Zoe asked, her voice steady but with a hint of excitement. What do you mean, Zoe? He asked, trying to catch his breath. Just above the clouds. They must be shining. She chirped, as if imparting an ageless wisdom that fled his own mind in this moment. Marcus's smile returned, reminding him that her positivity had power. You're right. There's always something beautiful up ahead, he said, steering further into the white. It was a reminder that beyond challenges lay endless potential, even when he couldn't see it clearly. Suddenly, the aircraft burst back into the sunlight, the brightness awakening every sense. Zoe squealed with delight, and Marcus felt a surge of triumph echoing through him. This is it, Zoe. We're breaking through. As the miles stretched out below them, he aimed to command the next maneuver with decisive elegance. His confidence surged as he focused, breathing deeply, wiping the sweat off his brow. It was time for the roll, a skill he practiced countless nights in hopes of impressing not just himself but the others who watched with skepticism. With Zoe watching intently beside him, each movement felt amplified. He turned the yoke gently, feeling the plane respond beautifully. He practiced this thousands of times, and now emotions fear, joy, love coalesced and swirled within him. The moment was always bittersweet, tinged with the weight of what he was proving. He belonged here, in this cockpit and beyond. As he smoothly executed the roll, a surge of exhilaration coursed through him, and Zoe's laughter rang like music. He caught a glimpse of her joy, and suddenly it all felt right. They were defying gravity together, daring to challenge the barriers that sought to hold him back. Yet, even as he momentarily celebrated this victory, Marcus felt the ever-looming shadow of doubt creeping back. What if this flight didn't symbolize a change? What if this moment was just a fleeting thrill with no real impact on the world outside? The radio buzzed back to life, a new voice breaking through. Marcus. Everyone's watching. You've got this. But as he felt the weight of that pressure, it sent unexpected chills through him. What did everyone expect from him? With thousands of eyes tuned into this moment, the stakes had been raised high. As clouds gathered not just outside but within him, he couldn't shake off the feeling that this was only the beginning of something bigger. The aircraft soared on, and his chest tightened with anticipation. Would this flight change perceptions, or would it fall silent amidst the noise? Heart racing, he looked at Zoe, her eyes wide and sparkling with dreams, and in that instant, he made a silent vow. No matter the outcome, he would not let the world define him. Their journey had just begun, he was ready to take on whatever awaited them next. But would his resolve hold strong when the winds of challenge began to shift? He glanced at Zoe again, her enthusiasm contagious, and in that moment, all the worries fading away seemed within reach. She leaned closer to the window, her little fingers pressed against the glass, tracing the landscape below. The vibrant patches of earth were a patchwork quilt. It filled him with a sense of awe and appreciation. This world, their world, was vast and full of wonder, and it was his duty to show her that. Buckle up, kiddo. We're going higher. He announced, his voice strong and playful. Zoe clapped her hands, her excitement infectious. The way she trusted him, it lit a fire in his gut. He was determined to make this flight one that she would carry with her, a memory to guide her through her own challenges. With a steady push on the throttle, they climbed higher. The engine roared to life, the rush sending cold chills through his veins. But these weren't the same fears that haunted him, they were igniting a forgotten dream, pushing him toward uncharted territories. The clouds around them became wisps of cotton candy, and for a hair-raising second, Marcus felt like a true artist painting with his aircraft a brush between the sky and him. Look, Dad. Zoe squealed, her face glowing. We're flying over the garden. Pointing below, she spotted the baseball diamond, their home tucked among trees, and the neighborhood she loved, small and beautiful. Yes. That's our backyard, he responded, reveling in her exhilaration. In that moment, the weight of judgment faded, allowing only joy to wash over him. But as he glanced at the control panel, the small instruction lights flickered, calling for his attention. "You're doing great, Marcus," the voice on the radio chimed once more, reinforcing the collective faith in him. Yet with every encouraging word, a whisper of doubt brushed against his heart. Was this really going to change anything? He shook off the thought as he adjusted the flight path. "Okay, Zoe. I'm going to show you a trick called the barrel roll," he said, synthesizing his nerves into determination. "Will it be crazy fun?" she asked eagerly. "Absolutely." "Hold on tight," he replied. With deliberate movements, he started the maneuver. The plane tilted, the world outside spiraled momentarily, and time seemed to slow. Zoe giggled, her laughter ringing clearly over the hum of the engine, and he found himself lost in the moment, overwhelmed by pride and joy as they danced through the air, but just then, the cockpit alarm sounded. An urgent beep shrilled through the space, jolting him back to reality. His heart raced, and instinct kicked in. He quickly stifled a panic but could sense Zoe's energy shift. "What's that, Dad?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper now. "Just a little hiccup. I've got it under control," he reassured her, forcing a calming smile that betrayed none of his rising anxiety. He flipped several switches, his fingers deftly executing years of training, but the alarm persisted. The plane flew on, smoothly enough, but he could feel an unsettling pressure building. "Just a quick adjustment," he called out, his bravado trying to mask the uncertainty dancing in his core. The way she believed in him ignited his resolve. He would not falter when it mattered most. Not now. As he refocused, he finally spotted the small flicker on the engine gauge. A surge of urgency rushed through him. This wasn't just a training flight anymore, this was about survival, and for Zoe, he needed to stay calm. Every instinct screamed as he fought the urge to panic. "Zoe, I need you to listen closely," he said, capturing her gaze fully. "Can you tell me what we've talked about regarding emergency procedures?" Her eyes darted around the cockpit, taking in the myriad of instruments and switches, and with newfound seriousness, she nodded. "If something happens, stay calm and follow the checklist, Dad." "That's right. Just like we practiced." His voice carried more confidence than he felt. They could do this together. Marcus reminded himself that this flight was not just about the technicalities, it was also about connection, the bond forged between father and daughter soaring high above the ground, trusting each other with their lives. Could they really weather this storm together? In that moment, as the plane adjusted to his commands, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever happened next, he would make every second count. But as shadows began to circle, the question loomed, would he be strong enough to push through this turbulence? Or was the real test of his spirit just about to begin? The alarm blared again, a sharp reminder of the gravity of the situation. Marcus's focus sharpened as he felt the weight of Zoe's trust in him, her small hands gripping the armrests tightly. He took a deep breath, grounding himself, as he glanced at her. Her wide eyes reflected both excitement and worry, an innocent blend that plunged right through his heart. "Everything's okay, Zoe. Just like we practiced, right?" His voice steadied as he fought against the tightness in his chest. They had talked about this, repeated the procedures, drilled over every possible scenario. But nothing could fully prepare him for the reality of it. "I remember," she said, her voice soft but clear. "You'll fix it, right?" "I will," he promised, although doubt flickered at the corners of his mind. He returned to the engine gauge, willing it to stabilize. With a grip born of frustration, he pressed the button for the fuel reserve. The generator hummed, but the alarm didn't cease. Another flicker from the panel caught his attention. "Come on," he muttered, feeling a bead of sweat form on his brow. He tugged at the throttle, adjusting the power to compensate for whatever was off balance. The plane responded a little, but it did not feel right. Suddenly, he remembered something critical. "Zoe, what's the first thing we should check in a situation like this?" She leaned in, determination setting her features. "Fuel," she declared, her voice growing stronger. Check the fuel levels. Yes. Exactly. He felt a spark of relief, encouraged by her confidence. He focused back on the instruments. A minor leak. Engine malfunction. The possibilities danced in his mind, but there was no room for second-guessing. Okay, Zoe. I need you to pay very close attention now. Can you keep watch over here while I check under the hood? Sure, Dad. She shifted forward, peeking at the panels with wide enthusiasm, eager to help, but he saw the shadows of uncertainty framing her eyes. Marcus opened the cover and took a quick look. There it was, a broken line, a crack he couldn't ignore. Adrenaline surged through him, threatening to cloud his judgment. This was the first real test of his skills under pressure, and more than that, this was the moment that would shape Zoe's perception of him. Stay by my side, he said gently, wanting to comfort her while urgency coursed through his veins. His mind flipped through memories of past flights and near misses, stoking a fire within him. They were not alone in this. Focusing back on the cockpit, he tuned out the alarms, understanding that this was a battle of wills, a conscious choice to stand against the chaos. He scanned the gauges again, deciding his next move. Okay, Zoe, we are going to switch to emergency procedures now. Are you ready to help? Yes. Her enthusiasm sparked like a flame, cutting through the tension. Her spirit lifted his own just like he originally planned. This was a moment to make memories that he relayed the new plan, giving her precise instructions while he recalibrated the throttle further, trying to find the sweet spot that would keep them airborne. As Zoe counted down their altitude, her voice mingled with the hum of the engine, slicing through the fear that threatened to overtake him. In that moment, it wasn't just about survival. It was about conquering fears, about seizing a fragile connection that could withstand anything. 3, 2, 1. She yelled, a shout of pure delight in a moment of chaos. The engine roared, the vibrations reverberated through them, and as they soared, Marcus felt the plane respond just right. They were steady, for now. He glanced at her, and for the first time since the alarm blared, they both exchanged relieved smiles. Yet in a distance, dark clouds gathered, a haunting reminder that their struggles were not over, but as he breathed, a question burned in his mind: could they truly overcome this together, or was there another twist waiting just around the corner? The clouds loomed larger now, casting ominous shadows over the cockpit. Marcus could feel a chill creeping in, an unsettling reminder that they weren't done with their trial. The steady hum of the engine had become a companion, lifting them above the chaos at least for now. But he couldn't relax. Not yet. Dad, Zoe's voice cut through his thoughts, filled with a blend of curiosity and concern. What if the clouds get worse? What happens then? He sighed, rubbing his temples briefly. Well, sweetheart, if things get rough, we might need to make some adjustments. But for now, we just keep flying straight and steady. Zoe watched him intently, her eyes wide and bright. And then what? She leaned in closer, her little face a mixture of anxiety and eagerness, as if she sought some sort of promise that everything would be okay. We'll find a way out. Just like we practiced, right? He returned her gaze firmly, willing her to sense his determination. If we have to, we can head toward the nearest airstrip. That's our backup plan. The clouds thickened, sending an almost palpable wave of dread through Marcus. He could already feel the plane vibrating uneasily. It was like a living thing, sensing the turbulence building around them. He flicked a switch, adjusting the radar screen, watching the storm pattern emerge. A knot formed in his stomach as he saw colors shift rapidly, red storm cells creeping toward them. Hang tight, Zoe, he said, forcing a calmness into his tone. We might hit some bumps. Like roller coasters? She asked, her enthusiasm momentarily lightening the atmosphere. Just like that, he replied, but deep down, he knew this was no game. As the first jolts of turbulence hit, Zoe squealed, a mixture of excitement and fear igniting her laughter. Marcus steadied the yoke, fighting against each thrust of the wind. The plane swayed, and adrenaline surged back through him. Zoe, remember what we said. Keep your eyes on me and follow my lead, he instructed, quickly glancing at her. She nodded, her small fingers digging into the armrest, but he could see her copying his every movement as he adjusted the throttle, shifting their altitude to ride out the worst of the storm. The turbulence intensified, and the plane bounced hard, making Zoe yelp. It's okay. Marcus encouraged, steadying his grip. Just like a roller coaster, remember? Right. There was a spark of joy in her eyes, like a candle flickering bravely in a gust, pushing back against fear. As they soared through the storm's temper, moments of sheer chaos rippled through the cabin. Marcus's heart raced. He was steering them into unknown territory, fighting against instincts that screamed to land. Then came another wrenching thrust, and the plane dropped suddenly. Dad! Zoe's voice shook. I've got you. He shouted, his nerves thrumming with urgency. He edged the controls, sensing the way forward through the chaos. Focusing on his daughter's trust and resilience became his lifeline. It was more than just survival now, it was a commitment to their journey together. Breathe, Zoe. He said. In and out. Their synchronized breaths filled the confined space, a rhythm of determination against uncertainty. Suddenly, through the swirling clouds, a glimpse of light broke through a silver lining, piercing the darkness. Look! Dad, look! Zoe shouted, her face lighting up with newfound hope. Hold on, Marcus murmured, adjusting their course toward that glimmer. The light led them on, cutting through the panic. As they broke free from the might of the storm, the horizon stretched wide before them, golden and inviting. We made it! Zoe cheered, her voice ringing with delight. Marcus's heart swelled, a rush of pride sweeping over him. But just beyond their moment of triumph, he noticed something out of place in the distance. Shadows appeared on the horizon, a potential threat or a beacon of discovery. What lay ahead would challenge everything they fought for, pushing their bond to the brink. Suddenly, the question loomed larger: would their hard-won victory last, or would they be tested one more time? As they cruised into clearer skies, the shadows began to solidify. Marcus squinted against the bright sun, feeling the weight in the pit of his stomach tighten again. The horizon was dotted with dark formations, oddly shaped and moving, almost like creatures in the distance. Zoe, stay alert. We need to figure out what those are. Zoe perched on her seat, wide-eyed with a mix of excitement and concern. Are they clouds or something worse? Let us hope they're just clouds, he said, but his voice carried a gravity he couldn't shake. They were flying a bit too high to see well, but he knew they had to make a choice soon. Pushing the throttle, he banked the plane slightly for a better look at the strange shapes. He tightened his grip on the controls. We'll circle around and get a closer look. It might just be a change in weather. It looks like something else. She exclaimed, her gaze fixed forward. Like a giant something. Marcus took a deep breath. I know, kiddo. But remember, we've faced worse. We can handle this. As they drew nearer, the shadowy figures became clearer, large silhouettes that were oddly organized, moving in a brutal choreography. With a sudden jolt, realization hit him like a thunderclap: they weren't clouds or animals, they were aircraft, many of them. His heart raced as he scanned the situation. Were they in the middle of an aerial show? This didn't feel like a routine flight anymore. Dad, are they going to? Zoe started, but Marcus cut her off. Let me think, Zoe. He narrowed his focus, scanning the skies around them. We need to keep our distance. He adjusted their altitude, looking for a safer route, when a flash of color in the mix distracted him. A wingtip painted in bright red swirled past, an unmistakable sign of an emergency signal. Dad! Zoe shouted, her voice breaking through his concentration. They're coming straight toward us. He twisted in his seat, straining against the ever-present instinct to evade. In an instant, 3 aircraft zoomed past, mere feet from their wing. The roar of engines filled the cockpit, and Marcus's heart raced with adrenaline. Hold on. He barked, adjusting the controls sharply. Why are they flying so close? Zoe asked, her face pale, but a hint of curiosity twinkled behind her fear. He frowned deeply. This isn't a normal situation. I think they might be in trouble. Almost as if the universe had heard his thoughts, the lead aircraft began to pitch and roll. Dad! It's going to crash. Zoe's eyes were glued to the windows. We have to help them. Back away from your window. He snapped, panic briefly seizing him. I'm going to try to see if we can catch their distress signal. Stay focused. The radio crackled to life, and a raspy voice broke through the chaos. Mayday. Mayday. We're losing altitude fast. We need assistance. Marcus's breath hitched. This was a call for help. The moment of decision pressed down on him. Zoe, we have to. His voice trailed off, uncertainty flooding him. What, Dad? Her small hands balled into fists on her thighs, waiting for him to lead. What do we do? Swallowing hard, he gripped the controls tight enough to feel his knuckles whiten. We turn back. We can't just fly away. We'll help them. With determination boiling in his veins, he swallowed his own fear. This could change everything. Their lives were at risk, and he was ready to act. As Marcus spun the yoke to navigate back toward the distress call, adrenaline coursed through his veins. The balance between courage and fear hung in the air, as the thunder of engines increased. But as they approached, he noticed the danger deeper than expected. This was a trap, but what kind? A sense of foreboding washed over him. He couldn't turn away now. The question loomed larger: would they become heroes, or victims in an unfolding darkness? The engines roared, and Marcus felt the weight of their choice settle around them like a heavy fog. As he steered the plane closer to the chaotic swarm, his instincts screamed caution, but there was no turning back now. Hold tight, Zoe, he said, his voice a mix of calm and urgency. The fear etched on her face swirled with determination. They were about to dive into a storm, one that had nothing to do with weather. Ahead, the lead aircraft continued to wobble dangerously. He could see it metal buckling against forces greater than it could withstand, the pilots likely grappling with a crisis far beyond his comprehension. Flickers of red and green lights blared from its belly, growing brighter as they closed the distance. What do we do if they crash? Zoe's voice trembled. She fidgeted with her seatbelt, eyes darting to Marcus. A part of him wanted to shield her from the nightmare unfolding, but the moment called for honesty. If they go down, we'll do our best to help. We'll find a way. His words felt hollow against the rapid thudding of his heart. The radio crackled again, yanking them both back to the reality of the moment. Mayday! Mayday! I repeat, we're going down. Prepare for impact. In a second, Marcus's mind raced through options. How could they assist in what felt like an impossible situation? The silhouette of the distressed plane loomed ominously as Marcus brought their aircraft alongside the lead plane, attempting to keep a safe distance. Zoe, keep your eyes peeled for anything we can do. We're going to get close enough to help but not close enough to get hit. His nerves vibrated through each word. Suddenly, the lead aircraft tipped again, flaring dangerously low. It was spiraling, and something detached with a loud pop, spinning away into the sky. Marcus instinctively banked their plane sharply to avoid the debris, a rush of adrenaline powering through him. There! Zoe shouted, pointing out the window. Look! They're ejecting. Marcus's throat tightened as he spotted the two figures launching from the cockpit, parachutes deploying against the backdrop of blue sky. Relief surged through him, but the chaos wasn't over. Just as quickly, dark clouds rolled in on the horizon, smothering hope with a thick blanket of uncertainty. Zoe, we need to make sure those pilots land safely, he said. Can you see them? I can. I can. Zoe leaned forward, her previous fear replaced by a fierce determination. The one on the left. She's heading towards that field. With his eyes locked on the horizon, Marcus carefully adjusted their altitude, positioning the plane to track the descending parachuters. The ground approached fast, they were losing time. "Zoe, prepare for landing. We have to move quick." He steered the plane toward the field, anxiety coiling in his gut. Imagining the pilots on the ground, straining against chaos, their survival hinged on him. As he began to circle lower, he caught sight of the ground crew rushing out to assist, their figures bustling with urgency. Just then, the radio buzzed back to life, but not with the sound of frantic fear. No, this voice cracked through the static with a resolve that reverberated hope through Marcus's chest. "Mayday, our pilots are safe. We need emergency services on site ASAP." A part of him felt lightened by the news, yet a trepidation lingered. Was it over? Could they really intercept the pilots once they hit the ground? "Stay focused," he urged himself, pushing the throttle forward, heart pounding. "Are we going to land?" Zoe asked, eyes shining bright, but a thread of worry still tangled in her voice. "Yeah. But we're not done yet." His gaze locked on the wayward parachuters again as they descended, the air vibrating with the tension of the unknown. "We have to see this through." As they finally neared the ground, Marcus understood that their fight was still unfolding. The descent into the chaos felt inevitable, but would it lead to triumph or disaster? Pressing the controls, he edged closer. The questions echoed louder than before: would they be the saviors they aimed to be, or face a storm that raged far beyond their control? A gust of wind pushed them off course, and Marcus's resolve tightened. The fight was just beginning. The ground rushed up to meet them, an expanse of green and brown, a patchwork waiting to be embraced. Marcus clenched the controls, heart pounding against his ribcage as he scanned for the pilots. In those fleeting moments, everything felt heightened. The colors around them intensified, sounds sharpened, and his thoughts raced. "Zoe, we need to be ready for anything," he called, feeding off her energy. They were about to witness a landing unlike any other. Low-hanging clouds loomed above, casting an ominous shadow over the field, but he wouldn't let fear dictate their actions now. "Got it," Zoe replied, determination firing in her eyes as she leaned closer to the window, an eager tension radiating from her small frame. The first parachute jerked downward, the pilot struggling to control her descent. Marcus's breath hitched as her foot hit the ground awkwardly, stumbling but managing to roll with the fall. Then he saw the second pilot coming in fast, his silhouette sharp against the sky. "Zoe! Watch him! On it!" She was fully engaged now, her earlier fears replaced with fierce focus. Marcus initiated a final hover, just above the field, eyes glued to the pilots as they began to untangle themselves from the parachutes. Ground crews were rushing over, ready to help. He could see their anxious faces but could not afford to lose sight of the moment unfolding below him. "Zoe, I'm going to stabilize us here. Keep an eye on their whereabouts," Marcus instructed, his voice drowning out the chaos in the back of his mind. He steadied the plane, pushing aside the noise, unable to let panic overtake him. As the first pilot got to her feet, she raised her arms in a victory sign to the cheering crowd, a rebuttal to fear and uncertainty. Adrenaline shot through Marcus, and he had to smile. They had survived, against all odds. But no moment of celebration was safe just yet. A sudden flare of movement drew his attention back to the second pilot, who was now tangled in his gear. He looked flustered, struggling to free himself as the ground crew rushed in. Marcus felt a jolt of sympathy, he remembered his own struggles. Each heartbeat seemed to drum louder in his chest. "Zoe, the other pilot needs help. Focus on him. I see him." Zoe called back, breaking her gaze to scan their surroundings. She was fierce, her voice punctuated by urgency. Marcus quickly glanced at the radio, fingers flying over the controls, teeth clenched. "Ground control, what is your status?" "Emergency services en route." "Stand by," came the terse reply. With a last push of the throttle, he maneuvered their plane lower, hovering over the scene. The other pilot finally stood up, his parachute finally relinquished. Zoe erupted in cheers, and for a moment, it felt like they could conquer anything. But as he returned his attention to the ground, a dull roar echoed from nearby. A whine followed by a gasp caught his ear, and dread invaded his heart. "Marcus, look!" Zoe's voice pierced the moment, pointing urgently. His stomach dropped. All eyes were suddenly on something beyond the pilots. The distant edge of the field began to shudder. "What is that?" he muttered, dread creeping in with the uncertainty. In the distance, dark figures emerged from the edge of the woods, moving swiftly toward the scene. A fog of anxiety settled around him as he realized they were not alone. "Are we about to get some visitors no one asked for?" Zoe whispered, eyes wide, and Marcus could hear the tremors in her voice. "Stay sharp. We might need to act fast," he said, heart racing again. What kind of storm were they headed into now? Marcus braced himself, and for the first time, doubt crept in with his resolve. They had saved 2 lives, but it felt like the battle was only just beginning. As the figures drew closer, he gripped the controls anew. Would they play a role in this new threat, or could they escape the storm once and for all? With determination burning brighter than ever, Marcus felt a surge of adrenaline as the dark figures closed in, moving like shadows through the mist. He knew he couldn't let fear grip him now. He had to protect Zoe and ensure the safety of everyone around them. The urgency in the air thickened like impending thunder. "Zoe, we're going to stay on the radio," he said, his voice steady. "Get ready to share what you see. We might need help." "Yes, Dad." Zoe responded, her young voice laced with a mixture of excitement and courage. She was on it, focused like a hawk, able to read the situation unfolding quickly before them. As they hovered above the clearing, Marcus's heart raced wildly. The ground crews were now aware of the approaching figures, their movements taking on a frenetic urgency. This wasn't just about saving lives anymore, it was about facing an unknown force together, as a family. "Ground control, we have potential new threats approaching. Requesting backup." "Roger that, Marcus." "Maintain position," the voice crackled back. Out of the woods came 3 men, heavy-set and hurried, clearly unidentifiable in the ruckus. They were rushing towards the pilots they had just rescued. Were they friends? Or something else entirely? "There is something not right, Dad," Zoe said, her voice tight with apprehension. "I know. Stay vigilant, sweetheart," Marcus replied, narrowing his eyes, ready to react at a moment's notice. Suddenly, one of the figures broke away from the group, moving stealthily, and before anyone could notice, he ducked behind the downed aircraft. Marcus felt a slip of panic claw at him. This was a challenge beyond anything they had faced thus far. "Zoe, look where he went. Let us keep our eyes on him. Right there." Zoe pointed, her small finger trembling slightly as she gripped the armrest. Without thinking, Marcus activated a camera to zoom in on the situation from above, capturing what they could relay back to ground control if things escalated. "Ground control, we have a man who just disappeared behind the downed aircraft. Could be a security risk," he relayed, heart pounding hard against his chest. "Understood, we're dispatching units now. Stand by, Marcus." The weight of those words hung in the air, heavy and tense. Each moment felt elongated, like the calm before the storm. The silhouette of the figure was clearly something out of place in this chaos. Dozens of moments passed, the tension thickening like fog, when suddenly the darker figures were sprinting towards the downed pilots. Instinct kicked in, and Marcus immediately swung the plane around, prepared to act. "Zoe, if anything happens, I need you to listen closely." The situation shifted quickly, urgency spiked as the men converged. The radio erupted back to life, frantic commands spilling out. "We need more units on the ground. Now. On it." Zoe shouted with vigor, her eyes never leaving the scene below. Before they could process it, a voice escalated. "Get away from them!" shouted one of the ground responders, panic seeping into his tone, and in that split second, Marcus knew what they had to do. With the figures closing in, he glanced at Zoe, her small face glowing with an inner strength he had never been prouder to witness. "Okay, kiddo. We're going to swoop in low and draw attention," he exclaimed, igniting them both with a fierce sense of purpose. Zoe nodded, excitement mixed with trepidation in her eyes. They both held onto the controls, synced for action, but just as they approached, a nearby explosion rocked through the field. The sound was jarring metal clanging, chaos erupting both on land and in their hearts. Marcus felt the plane shudder but held on tight. "Dad!" Zoe cried out, but Marcus couldn't afford to falter. "Eyes ahead, Zoe. Just like we practiced," he shouted, maneuvers slipping smoothly from his fingers as they danced together through the skies. Fueled by adrenaline, he steered lower, a gust of power propelling them to a dive toward the field edge. The approaching figures froze, hostility replaced with shock as they stared up, confused by the sight of an aircraft descending with purpose. "Now!" Marcus yelled, flipping on the aircraft's floodlights to blind the intruders, sending a message that they wouldn't back down. The sudden brilliance illuminated the scene in stark light, exposing everything. Ground responders sprung into action, creating momentum from the chaos, and more safety units flooded in from the perimeter. Their presence radiated security, igniting the hope that changed everything. In the dynamic clash of fear and bravery, support surged. Marcus saw the second pilot now free, joining forces with ground crews, confronting the intruding shadows. It was a community rallying together under pressure. Zoe's eyes sparkled as she watched, a fire of hope twinkling in them. "Look at that!" she exclaimed, exuberance rising. "They're not alone anymore." "No, they aren't," Marcus said, feeling emotional fullness swell within him, an overwhelming sense of pride. Without realizing, they had fought through unthinkable troubles together. They had claimed their ground as a family. Amidst the seismic shifts of the moment, an overwhelming warmth flooded through Marcus' love and connection radiating stronger than any storm. It empowered him, reminding him of their strength, of who they were. "Thank you, Zoe," he breathed, humbled by her fierce spirit. The storm had passed, not just outside but within them, having unlocked resilience and unity. Together, they were ready for a world that still needed changing, knowing each little act held the power to break through barriers and transform lives. As ground support secured the site, Marcus took one last glance at Zoe, filled with a heartwarming link of joy, triumph, and an unbreakable bond. "We did it together, Zoe. No matter what comes next, we're unstoppable," he whispered, confidence glowing between them like a bright beacon in the skies. They had faced the storms of judgment, the tumult of fear, and yet emerged victorious. Now, it was time to soar together, through whatever clouds awaited them. This was just the beginning. If you felt the power of this story, the fight for dreams, and the unyielding hope of transformation, then this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover this journey. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. And remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now, don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.